Hello, my name is James Adlington, and I've been asked to talk to you about this, namely the Spooky 2 Rife machine. Okay, first of all, I'm going to give you a background of my experience and how I came to get used to it, and how I came to use it, and how it helped me. Okay, um, I was bitten by ticks um, day in, day out. And being a man or sort of like thing, I just ignored it all the time. I just ignored the ticks. And then one day I got this very big rash on my chest, actually, from a tick right there. It looked like a bullseye, right? Look, I had a target on my chest, actually. So, being a man and an idiot, I decided to put a t-shirt on and not take it off until the bloody thing disappeared. And I thought that was the best way of dealing with it. Um, I'd heard of Lyme's disease, and I checked it out with my local GP, and he told me that it was sort of like a bad case of the flu. So I thought, well, I'm fit and I'm strong, and I can't handle a bad case of the flu. The rash eventually disappeared, and I just got on with life as normal. At the time, I was running companies, I was employing loads of people, I was running kickboxing squads, I was training martial, I was doing um, marathons and half marathons, running, I was cycling, I was incredibly fit and doing loads and loads and loads and loads of different things and not thinking about anything. Slowly, my life got smaller and smaller and smaller. I was unable to, I had to drop out of some of the races, the marathon races. The training, when I be doing my martial arts training, became very hard, and I found my recovery time became very, very, very long. And basically, slowly, I did one half marathon, and I just did not recover. You know, 2 weeks after the half marathon, I was still like I just finished a couple of hours ago. And I went to the doctor, and basically they just said, "Oh, you're run down, blah 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 blah," anything like that. And then I did started doing some research, and I researched into Lyme's disease because I thought, well, that's the only thing I've had, you know. So I looked into Lyme's disease, and what I read sort of made my what little hair I had curl. It didn't curl; it's not curling now. But it's basically what I read was, this is the thin end of a very thick wedge, and it was. And sure enough, I became more and more less and less able, more and more ill, and less able to get on with my life. I went to the doctor again, spoke to them about Lyme's disease, and basically they said, well, if you had that rash, it's probably gone now, the Lyme's disease. And But he said, just in case, I will give you 2 weeks of amoxicillin. So I had 2 weeks of amoxicillin, and it made absolutely no difference whatsoever. So I discovered, things. This was back in probably 2011, and all the way through 2012, 2013, I got worse and worse and worse. I've been unable to work. I sort of like my family was struggling with me. It's very, very difficult. Very, very. If you look into Lyme's disease, if you have Lyme's disease, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Pain in the hands and extremities and fingers, ringing in the ears, absolutely total fatigue, unable to think. Your head sort of like somebody's mashed it all up. Loads and loads and loads, hundreds and hundreds of symptoms that you can't, you find, you can't really put your finger on some of them, but it all amounts to is your life just goes flushing down the toilet. So I did lots of research, and I found Lyme literate doctors in Brussels, in on Belgium, and I visited him. I had a proper examination, had a proper thing, and he treated me with antibiotics, heavy antibiotics, long-term antibiotics, and I took them, and they made me more and more unwell even further. I mean, I did not recover. It didn't actually fix me. It seemed to make me worse. And it got to a point where I got admitted to hospital from, I thought I was dying actually, but people, because I was not at home, I was like a fool. I'd gone somewhere and I'd collapsed. So everybody thought I was dying. So I admitted to hospital. And basically I thought, well, these antibiotics aren't working. The Lyme still is strong and as good as anything, but all I'm doing is making myself ill. So I decided to stop the thing. And then I started looking around for other possibilities. I came across, after lots of things, I came across Royal Rife. Now Royal Rife was a genius. Now they use the word genius far too often, but along with people like sorry, my dog's here at the moment. He's demanding attention for some reason. Um, along with people like Tesla and thing, Rife was an electronic genius in this sort of early part of the 20th century, about 100 years ago now, right? Yeah. In fact, he invented something that it's still using virtually exact technology today, and right the way through, he invented the electron microscope, and they're still using his technology today. Right? And when he invented the electron microscope, he was the first person to identify bacteria. He's a very, very clever guy. He's the first one to actually look at the bugs, the little germs, and he saw them, and he said these things do exist. That's where germs came from, and he identified viruses and he identified bacteria. But another thing he did was actually he worked out that if you certain bacteria, if you put them in a dish and you gave them a vibration frequency, you could kill them with a frequency. And you could put different bacterias all mixed up into a jar or whatever onto a thing, and you could fire a frequency, and the frequency would kill the one bacteria, but it wouldn't kill the others. And you could find another frequency to kill the other ones. Excuse me, that was my phone. I do apologise. And he said, well, if I could build a machine that can actually generate these frequencies, and when people are ill, they could get these frequencies going through them. We transmit these frequencies through them, then I can kill the bacteria that's causing their disease. So he made this big machine, and he experimented with people, and the experiments proved very, 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 very positive. So he had a big unveiling, a big event, a big meal. He invited all these pharmaceutical people, doctors, and everybody, all these people from across America and everything like that, to come to this big thing. And the meal was the end of disease as we know it. And that's the thing. I can cure virtually all diseases. And they had the meal, they had the meeting, and he went from being possibly one of the most lauded scientists in the world in the 1920s. Overnight, he was ostracized. He was ostracized. I mean, he was ostracized out of his whole life. I mean, I think he only lasted about 8 years. He died in Mexico in hiding, and they reckon it was Big Pharma, the pharmaceutical companies, that went after him, because the last thing they wanted for was to be diseased to be cured. They need people to be ill so they can keep selling them pills. That's how Western medicine works. It's not wellness. So anyway, that sort of died a death. The Rife machine, which is they called it, as what it got called, died a death. So many years later, a chap called Doug Coyle, Doug, he researched Rife, and he built a Doug Coyle, which was like a version of Rife's machine using Rife's technology. And he developed it, and he tested with it, and the Doug Coyle actually became used, and people said it actually worked. Now, don't ask me how it works. It's bloody magic to me. But Yeah, it worked. Anyway, I was desperate. I was utterly desperate. So I started lying in bed, off with the computer, looking into all these, potential sort of like treatments. And this Rife thing kept coming back, and a dog coil kept coming back, but it was so expensive. It was, because you're ill, you're not working, you're not making money, you cannot do it. But then I came across Spooky 2. Spooky 2. Okay, I'm going to unplug this one because it's, and that's a machine there. It's probably got a bit too much light on it, but there you go. And I think you can see Spooky 2 across there, and there's a little ghost there. Okay, I came across this, and it's a frequency generator, a Rife frequency generator. And there was a chap, American chap, a scientist, and he was reviewing it, and he put it onto an oscilloscope, and he said, yes, it actually is broadcasting the frequencies that it says it should be broadcasting, and it, to all intents and purposes, it's working. So I cobbled some pennies together, well, and I bought two machines, and I got them back. I have had uh, I was trained as an engineer in my younger life, so the fitting and the setting up of these was not the most clearest thing I'd ever come across, but I worked it out myself quite easily from my experience. There is a video of me online actually explaining how to fit these things in. A really basic one, very rough one. I think I need to do something a little bit more. But and the software is slightly sort of like well, well, now I'm using it, it's absolutely fine, it's great, but when you first come across it, it's like something out the 1990s, software out the 1990s, but it does work. It does work. Anyway, I plugged them in, and I was really quite unwell at the time, and it took me about 3 weeks from receiving them to be well enough to install them. I was that unwell. I couldn't even start it. But one day I got well enough to do it, and I installed it, and I got hold of the software, and I went through the software just to see, and I saw something, mental alertness program. So I thought, excuse my language, I really do need that one. So I just set the things on the mental alertness program, and off they went. And I sat around, and I thought, well, I put my DNA on the little transmitter there. I went for the remote because basically I wasn't going to sit there holding things or having things stuck to me, because you still want to be free to live your life. So I read the remote thing, and you've got a kill program, and a black one is a kill, the white one is just a remote sort of frequency. It's a lower intensity, and believe you me, it is fine. You don't need any more intensity than the white ones. The black ones, for me, no good whatsoever. When you got Lyme's disease, if you kill the bacteria too quickly, you get what's called a Jarisch-Herxheimer reaction, and when things are working, are killing bacteria, because you get a Jarisch-Herxheimer reaction, and that is awful. I mean, you do have to have it. You have to go through it, but it makes you feel bloody dreadful, and you feel toxic. You feel poisoned and everything like that, and really unpleasant. But these things could actually, I found out to my cost, could give you quite a heavy Jarisch-Herxheimer reaction. So it's actually implying that it's working as well as killing thick bugs as well as the antibodies. But the great thing about these is you have total control over what you do. So what I did with it, I did the blood cleanse, I did the mental alertness, I did all things that were sort of like maintenance to make myself be as strong with what I had. And it was quite amazing, revealing. I don't know how it works, I don't know what thing, but I got to myself, I got up and I started doing things. And there were a couple of people that I knew had Lyme's disease as well, living in the area, who were suffering, you know, as badly as I was. So I literally called them over to come and sit in this room, took some of their DNA, put it in there, mixed it all in with it, and fired them up. Didn't tell them about what I was doing. I just sit here for. And one of them looked at me and said, "That's weird." I said, "What's weird?" She said, "I feel better than I felt for a long, long time." And I said, "Yeah." I said, and I said, "This is Royal Rife machines, like, you know." I'm started explaining what I knew. So eventually they bought, long story short, they bought some, and we all bought machines together. Like, you know, there were more machines going around. Personally, I think every household should have at least two spooky twos in it, and they should be run like as a maintenance program to keep you well. My wife actually has some ailments now that we've used it on this, and it's almost like we're fighting over the spookies because it works very, very well for her. And I did it without telling her. I put these machines on without telling her to treat her, and she noticed very, very, very within about a week. She started to notice, and she said to me, "You haven't put the spookies on, having a go at me, have you, by any chance?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, that's amazing. It's working." Yeah. So I think personally, I think you could. It would be brilliant if they made something slightly more user friendly, but these are good. They work. I don't know how it works. I am now, from not being able to work, I've had these for about 18 months now, and I'm now, from not being able to work, I am working 6 days a week, which is amazing in comparison to what I used to be able to do. So all I say to you is, if you've got Lyme's disease or if you've got a chronic illness, this is something worth trying. This is definitely something worth trying. It's changed my life around. I mean, it has changed my life around. It's given me my life back. And whether it works or not, that's the time. I've got to go. My dogs are calling. So good luck, peace, people, and stay cool.